In this video, we complete step 20, create a new column. The past several videos had us selecting subsets of data with the brackets. And the way Python allows us to do this is gives us this special getItem method, this special method, dunder getItem. So in this video, what we are going to be doing is creating an entire new column, or in fact, overriding an old column as well. So for instance, this is what our syntax is going to look like. We're going to be able to do something like this. df, and this using the same brackets, put the name of the new column, or it could be actually an old column and we're overriding it. But regardless, we're going to allow our data frame to take in a single column or append a new column to it, and we're going to force our users to use a NumPy array to give us the values for that new column. So this is not done. We're going to be doing an assignment statement here. So this is done not with the dunder getItem, but with dunder setItem special method. So here it is over here. It's already defined, and we are going to complete this. So this method gets triggered whenever you do an assignment statement to the brackets operator. So it takes two parameters that are sent to it. So first is the key. This is the value inside the brackets, and the second is what's called the value, and this is on the right-hand side of the equal sign. So those are the two values that are passed over here to the setItem special method. So it's our job to implement this right now. Okay. So let's just follow the instructions over here and knock this out one by one. So it says the key, so the key is new column and the value is whatever's on the right hand side of the equal sign. Here's our first sort of task. It says if the key is not a string, raise a not implemented error, stating that the data frame can only handle can only set a single column. Okay, so we're going to limit the functionality of setItem to just setting a single column. Now pandas allows you to set multiple columns or even set subsets of your data. So we're not going to do that. It's actually fairly complex. We're only going to handle the simple case. So with that said, we'll say that if the key is not a string, so if we'll say not is instance. If the key is not a string, then we're going to raise a not implemented error. And we'll say that setting columns is only done with a single column. Okay, so you maybe make a better error message there, but that'll get us started for this. So if it is not a string, we're just going to say we haven't implemented that yet. And we're going to give the user a message for that. So we're not going to handle the cases if the user gives us a list or an integer or anything like that. We're simply going to force our users to give us a string. Okay. Now let's move on to the value. Let's do some checking for the value. So if the value is a NumPy array, we're going to raise a value error if it is not one-dimensional. Okay, so now let's look at the value. So we're going to force the value here to be not necessarily a NumPy array, but if it's not a one-dimensional NumPy array, we will raise a value error. So let's just say if value is a NumPy array, so the underlying data type is ND array, then we will check if the number of dimensions is not 1. So ndim is an attribute that returns the number of dimensions of your NumPy array. So it better be one-dimensional NumPy array. Then we'll raise a value error over here. I think I just ran a command I didn't mean to. All right, so we're going to raise a value error and say the NumPy array must be one-dimensional. Okay, so that handles that. And I'm hopping all over the place here. All right, so the next thing is raise a different value error if the length is different than the calling data frame. So if we are setting a new column, then the new column length better be the same exact length as all the other columns. So let's go ahead and do that now. If the length of the value, if it does not equal the length of the current data frame, which is simply length of self, so if that new column that you're setting, that new NumPy array is not the length of the self, then we will raise a value error. Length of setting array must match length of data frame. Okay, so we'll have that error message for that. Okay, continuing. So if we do have a NumPy array, it has to do these two checks. Now let's keep going. So if value is a data frame, let's do elif. So if value is, we're going to allow our users to give us the data frame. So if value is a data frame, then we're going to enforce that this data frame is a single column. So we're right here. So if value is a data frame, we're going to raise a value error if it is not a single column. So we'll use the shape parameter here. So if this does not equal 1, then we'll raise a value error and say that we'll say that the setting data frame must be one column. Okay, great. Now it says raise a different value error if the length is different than the calling data frame. So this is the same thing as what we just did above. So if the length of value does not equal the length of self, then we have another problem. We're going to raise another value error and say setting data frame must be the same length. Okay, good. And now, so if it passes those two tests, then we will actually just reassign value to be the underlying NumPy array of that column. So let's go ahead and get that. Let's reassign value to be that NumPy array. So what we did here, we're going to do the same thing as we've done in the past. We're going to create an iterator of the next one. So the underlying values are stored in the data parameter. And we'll call the values method on this underlying dictionary to get those values. Okay, so value equals the next one. Okay, that looks good. All right. Now, so we've handled the case if value is a NumPy array and the case if it is a data frame. Here's a case where if the value is a single integer, float, or Boolean, or any single value, okay? So if someone does this, what we're going to do, so if you make an assignment like this, we're going to make all the values just this single number or string or float or Boolean. So if you give a scalar value, so this is called a scalar value. So this is not a list or NumPy array, it's just a single scalar value. So if you give it an integer, string, float, or Boolean, we will repeat this for every single value in the, for every single row that you have. So let's handle this case. So if value is a integer, a Boolean, a string, or a float, then we will repeat this. So what we're going to do here is we're going to reassign value, and we will repeat np.repeat. So if we look at the documentation, it says here's the array that we'd like to repeat. And you can actually make this equal to just a single value, so it's fine. And then the number of repeats. So this needs to be an integer. So we're going to repeat value, and we're going to repeat it how long our current data frame is. So it's length of self. So this is going to return a one-dimensional NumPy array of our scalar value repeated that many times. Okay, good. So if it's not one of these, then so if value is not one of these, and maybe we should put a space there to separate the keys from the value logic, then we will raise a type error And we can say that setting object must be array data frame int bool string or float. Okay. Okay, good. So now value is guaranteed to be a NumPy array. So each one of these cases will make sure that it is a NumPy array. So if it is a NumPy array, it'll just stay a NumPy array. If it's a data frame, then we're going to get the underlying NumPy array. If it is an integer, Boolean, string, or float, then we're going to repeat that value and create a NumPy array out of that. Okay, so it says, after completing the above, value will be a one-dimensional array. Okay, one last thing. If its data type kind is U, so we need to actually change any data types that have U into object. So let's go ahead and do that here. So if value.dtype.kind equals U, so if it's a Unicode array, we will reassign this to object like we did in the constructor. Okay, so that'll handle the case that we have strings. So if we have a string, a new column that's strings, we will take care of it and make sure it's object so that it is more flexible. Okay, so finally, we're just going to make one more assignment. And that's, well, we have to overwrite the data or write in a new data. So what we're going to do is we will take whatever the key is. So hopefully this is going to be a valid column name. It must be a string. And we're just going to assign it the new data, which is just value. So all that work now, we can just make this assignment directly. So key is going to be the string and value is going to be a NumPy array. And this should either reassign an old column or add a new column to the data frame. Let's go ahead and do as we've done before and check how this works in a Jupyter Notebook. So let's look at df again. Let's go ahead and make a new assignment here. So let's just make a new column. We'll just say we'll just call it new column. And we'll say np.array. So we'll just go ahead and give it some values, 199, 98. Make sure that it is the same length, so it's 3. So that actually completed. And when we look at df, all right, looks like we have a new column. Let's make another new column, say new col2, and I'm lazy, so let's just give it a string and see if this works. Okay, good. So they're all the same 3 strings, so it's been repeated. Let's overwrite a column. So let's say df of state equals, let's just make it all 5. So let's look at this. And so now we've overridden state with all 5. So everything is looking good when we manually test in the notebook. Let's go back over here and test this. So we're going to run the test new column test new column, and see if this works. And good. Okay, we passed. All right. So we passed the test. Excellent. So that completes step 20, which is either assigning a new column or overwriting an old column with the setItem special method.